The primary vehicle that we have produces passive income. Now that's really important because mostly people don't have passive income and they don't really have a really easy way of getting it. And as we talked about, they're the sorts of things, if you do have a passive income, if you do have financial independence, they're the sort of things that you can actually do. And it's buckets or pipelines, right? We talked about that, so just to clue you in. And really, there's a guy called Robert Kiyosaki, which you probably, most of you have heard about. What I'm about to go through now is some basic stuff, and then I'll go through. I'm just going to assume that there's a few people in the audience who maybe they haven't even seen the basic business idea, right? So I'm just going to explain the basic business idea very, very quickly. And what you need to know, if you are in that category, you're not going to learn much from what I do now. You need to come to a weekly meeting that we have, okay? But what we talk about is that, Robert Kiyosaki says there are only 3 ways that you can get passive income, okay? The first, as far as business is concerned, the first way is to be Bill Gates, okay, and start your own huge monster company that you can step back from, and that will continue to produce the income for you. Now, I don't think that's really very feasible for most people or very sensible for most people because it's going to take a long time, huge risk, and so on, right? The second option is to buy a public franchise. In my opinion, that's really in the investment quadrant more than the business quadrant in a way, because you've got to have huge amounts of money anyway, and also it's not guaranteed, and so forth. So I don't think that's a really great option because you're buying a system. The third option is private franchising, which is what we're talking about, where you actually join a system, and the very low capital investment, very low risk, and low skill. And you have a lot of fun. Most business is not fun. This business, I'm hoping you're gathering the impression, is lots of fun. So what do? We use a team strategy for building pipelines. So, the pipeline analogy of, let's build a pipeline instead of carrying the buckets, right? Well, what we do is we build pipelines of consumers. Now, the very most important thing to get about this is not about products, it's about people. It's a people business, not a product business. A people business, not a product business. We're out there to help people. But the bottom line is that the way it works for those for people in the audience who kind of go, okay, well, where does the money come from and how does all that work? I'm going to do a very quick, brief overview for you, okay? So what we've got to realize is that if we look at stuff that we're all buying all the time, basic consumables and that sort of stuff, if you think of this gadget in my hand here right now, what do you think that costs to manufacture? It costs 10% or 20% of what I paid for it. Would you agree with that, right? So what actually changes about this product between the time it leaves the manufacturer and the time I get it into my hands? What changes about it? Nothing except for the price. Is that right? So we, the bunnies, are out there making other people rich because there's a lot of people in between who are making all that money. Would you agree with that? Now, when you think about consumable items that you buy regularly over and over and over and over again, do you really want to pay for the advertising? Do you really want to pay for Coles and Woolies having to store it and have the people to serve you and putting the stock on the shelves and paying for the security guards and all that sort of stuff? Do you understand what we're really paying for that we don't need to? Do you know what I mean? So that's where the money comes from. There's a big chunk of money. If you can get stuff very close to the manufacturers, a big chunk of money which can be saved. And what actually happens to that chunk of money, it's split into 2 parts. One part is passed on to people who, if you get Granny into this system here who has no desire to build a business whatsoever, Granny can at least save money. And Granny doesn't mind that, do you know what I mean? And you don't either. Does anybody here who object to, buying what they're already buying at a cheaper price delivered to their door? If I said to you, I guarantee you that you will become totally and utterly financially freedom beyond your wildest dreams in terms of wealth, and all that you have to do is buy what you're already buying at a cheaper price delivered to your door, is there anybody here who wouldn't do that? I'd shovel wet manure for 2 hours a day if someone told me that, wouldn't you? So, really, let's get it into perspective. It just makes sense. We're using our anyway money to get rich instead of making somebody else rich with that anyway money. And I'm so excited about that. I've been in this business for 13 go out and those people that you talk to about this business or this type of business tell you about is true. All these horror nightmare stories, 10 years ago, it was awful when we first joined it and things happened, and there have been some magnificent changes that have come about. But in all the time that I've been in this business, there has been no change that I have ever seen that is going to have the impact that the change of 10 weeks ago has had. And you are so lucky to be getting into this now. There's not one person that you can't convince to get into this business if you're able to get in front of them. I don't care how negative, what negative experiences they've had before, because what they've had before isn't this. I can guarantee you that. This week I spoke to 2 people who were in this thing 4 times before, and they weren't in this thing. They were in something that looked like this thing, but it's a different thing now. Does everybody get the picture? All right? And they will not be negative, because all of the negatives that they had before have been removed by what we are now talking about today. So what we do is we build pipelines of consumers. Everyone in the pipeline changes some of their buying habits. This produces monthly income, the margin that does not go to stores, advertising, etc. All right. Now, when you think about people going in, everybody that gets into this pipeline, is there anybody here? What do you have got to sell them? Well, I tell you, you've got to do a really big sell job to get them to use toilet paper, right? They don't currently use toilet paper, so you've got to say toilet paper is a good thing to use. All right. So how much selling do you have to do to get that happening? What you've got to sell them on is, hey, you're buying toilet paper anyway. You're buying washing powder anyway. You're buying toothpaste anyway. Why don't you? Anyway, right? So why don't you just buy that from a different source, save some money on it, and that's how you're going to become wealthy. Is that a big sell? I don't think that's a big sell, do you? All right? So simple as that. Okay, this part is really, really simple. People are simple. The business is simple, but people are complex. Have you discovered that in your life so far? That's why you need all the people stuff. So what we're really doing is we're building our own pipelines. Currently, we as consumers go to the stores. And we buy all this sort of stuff, right? So what we do is instead is we say, how about we take some of our anyway money and through an online facility, we start buying that stuff ourselves. So we become a very large buying group, and we are a cooperative. If you want to think about it like an old-fashioned cooperative, that's what we are. You know, we've just banded together and said, stuff them. We don't need to have those concrete jungles. We can buy online. And it's come of age. Around about the year 2000, you know, you saw www.this, that, and everything else. Do you remember that, right? And it was just a bit ahead of its time. Now is the perfect timing for this. You know, people at that time didn't want to put their credit cards on the internet. They weren't that familiar with computers. Nowadays, it's got to the stage where just about everybody's got broadband. Do you know what I mean? It's fast, it's cheap. eBay is everybody, all the kids grow up and use eBay, so you're going to be dumb if you don't do your mundane stuff on the internet when you think about it, right? But Coles and Woolies are stuck with their concrete jungles. They can't compete. Do you understand what I mean? So this is the way of the future anyway, when you think about it, right? So that's anyway money. And we create our own pipelines. Now, this is what I want to really talk about, because this is the big change that has come about, and it's so amazing. It really is, right? So here's you up there, right? Now, I just want to give you a quick little just analogy, just to give you the scale of this. You know, as I said, I've been in the business for about 13 years. It took us 3 years with a very limited range of products, no internet, nothing, and me running a very busy business to get to a stage where we were able to retire to the Gold Coast 9-10 years ago, all right? And we have lived there ever since on the passive income that has been generated from that business that we started in Sydney. One of the big hang-ups that people like me have, and there's probably a few of you sitting in the audience very sceptical about, does this really work and what have you, and there's all kinds of things that go through your mind, and one of the things that went through my mind is, I don't believe that you can develop a business that you can just leave and then it'll grow or stay or maintain. I just don't believe that. Well, I've done it. I've moved to the Gold Coast. I haven't been in Sydney for years, all right? And what I'm about to tell you now should blow your mind, okay? To use the expression of our friend who spoke earlier, okay? Because our friend who spoke earlier is actually my cousin, right? He's my cousin. It's true, okay? This is what happened. See that person up there? That's a lady who lives in Sydney by the name of Susan Miller. And she introduced me and my wife to this business, okay? So this is me and my wife over here. At the same time, she introduced some people over here who introduced some people, introduced some people, introduced some people, introduced some people, who introduced Sushil and his wife, okay? So this same lady here introduced us and also introduced this person over there. Now this lady, Susan, was extremely active in this business for 2 years, about 11 or 12 years ago. and she has not done one thing since. Not one. But these are two of the people that she introduced. Now, she's not doing anything. She's not coming to any functions. She's not doing anything. If you were her and you had me and you had him, do you get passive income? It's not passive income, it's growing passive income, massively growing passive income. I've got a huge business in India too. I've got a huge business in Indonesia, but this man is so humble, you have no idea the size of his business in India. You know, in India, they had a function like this where, I don't know how many people do you reckon there are here today? 700? Something like that? Okay. Try 50,000 in India, all right? Hands up those people in this audience who were not born in Australia or their parents were not born in Australia. Hands up and keep them up. Oh, there's a few of you. So you've got connections overseas. So can you imagine how big this is going to be? Because your pipelines extend to China, to wherever. You know what I mean? Now, China is our biggest market, for example. We don't care what they're buying in the pipeline. It can be rice for all we care. We don't care. Do you know what I mean? It's just a pipeline. We're just building in a mass. Now, do you understand a couple of things? First of all, it is big-time passive. Sue is not doing anything, hasn't done anything. I hope she doesn't because she'd only stuff it up. But she's enjoying the checks. Right? She's enjoying the checks. Would you enjoy the checks if you were her? Is that a fluke? Is it just something that, oh, she got lucky? Do you think so? I don't think so. It's impossible that won't happen for you if you do this right. It's impossible. Because when you understand what we're doing here now with Team 21, this is before Team 21, right? Can you imagine what we're doing with Team 21? With Team 21, it is absolutely amazing. And I've experienced a few people saying, I'm ready. What have I got to do? Because when you develop 3 of these, if this one's going to be developed for you anyway, this apprenticeship phase, you're in here, you get in here, ideally you learn what to do, right? You know, a lot of people why wouldn't somebody get in? I mean, you know, the point is that this is going to go down, went to 50 deep. We talk about taking this down to 50 deep. I don't know what you know about this yet, but does anybody have any idea what happens when it gets to 50 deep? Do you think it sort of stays at 50 deep? It doesn't stay at 50 deep, right? Because the guy who's 30 deep, who's rabid, right, he's got to take it down 50 deep before he's out of there too, right? So then that goes way, way, way beyond you. It's out of control, Sue. I'm sorry. You know, the money just keeps getting bigger, you know? All right? So so why wouldn't anybody that you know, which means, I mean, when we go down here and we look at the money in this, right, we're saying that this emerald level here, right, that's the one, that's that first big pipeline there, and that keeps on going it deeper and deeper and deeper. We're looking at $85,000 a year if we looked at these 3 being like 50 deep. But let's say this one here is 1,000 deep. That one's, and you get off, before you decided to say, I'm ready, and then you develop 2 that are 50 deep here, right? We're talking way, way, way in excess of 85,000. So why wouldn't you do your friends the favour of getting them into the pipeline, come back 5 years later, develop 2 more, they're not talking 85 grand, they're talking horrendous amounts of money. I've just come back from Rome with a couple that have got 3 of these legs like this. One bonus alone that they got was $450,000. Right? That's because this one of their legs had become very big, all right? All right, so they're happy little campers. All right. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to keep this simple. Basically, like, we don't need to complicate it. You just need to go, what the heck, why wouldn't I? Do you know what I mean? Why wouldn't I? And all you need to know is that if you can get into this apprenticeship phase here and learn what to do there, you can then duplicate that into a couple of other legs and you can end up with a very, very significant income. And, you know, when you look at my own example, we did this and we sort of retired to the Gold Coast and didn't do too much for a number of years. But 2 years ago, before this pipeline came in, we developed another 3 of these in 1 year, before the pipeline. Right, this is before this whole approach here. And then we developed last year another 3 on top of that. So we went from having 3 to having 9 in the last 2 years. That's without the new change that came involved. So I'm telling you, anybody can do this. You know, like, you can learn how to do this and do it fast. It's not a talent thing, it's a learned thing. And you might be sitting there thinking, how can everybody in this room achieve those big sorts of money and all that sort of stuff? Wrong thinking, okay? Because you get into a team. It's not you that does it. You don't do it, the team does it. You and the team do it. You're part of the team, and you can create your own teams. It's as simple as that. And if you learn how to do it, and that's the key thing. So, okay, that's what happens. Health and wellness, I mean, I just think when you think about the actual things that we're tapped into, it's just mind-blowing, because this sort of fits with our whole image of helping people. It also happens to be the next trillion-dollar industry, definitely. This guy predicted the internet revolution, and now he's predicting this. Does anybody in the room doubt that the health and wellness industry will be the next trillion-dollar industry? Does anybody doubt that for 1 second? I've done a survey just recently myself. Every single presentation that I give to anybody, I talk about health, and I have no preempting whatsoever, and I say, what do you think about health? How important is it to you? And you ask that question to anybody. These days, people are really getting their heads around, no, I don't want to be treated for a heart attack, I just don't want to have one at all. Thank you very much. All right? That's where people are at these days. You know, they're realising it's their responsibility to do something about it. So that's absolutely huge. Network 21, I've already talked about that. That's really, we're training over 2 million IBOs now. Robert Kiyosaki says it's the best education program he's ever seen, right? So it is absolutely amazing, and I've been through that. So next steps, that's what I want to talk to you about now. Is there everybody on the same plane? Is there anybody in the room who really wants financial freedom? Who wants financial independence? Great, most hands. Is there anybody who really doesn't want financial independence? Okay. Is there anybody who doesn't want to help other people to get financial independence? You know, why not? Okay. Now, you know what I thought in the beginning is, if you come from a business background or a background prior to this business, what do you think of when you think of financial independence? What ways do you think of getting financial independence? Or maybe you don't think it's that important because life's going along just fine, and why should I worry about it? I don't know, maybe you're in any of those sorts of categories. But let's think about, you have thought about it and you've decided, I don't need this because I'm going to develop shares, property, or my own company. Has anybody sort of thought down those sorts of lines, and that's how it's going to get me there? I'd suggest you really think about that, because there's a few of us who've tried. Do you know what I mean? There's a few of us who've tried, and you don't want to wake up 10 years later and say, well, I doubted them, I wanted to prove him wrong, but I didn't. Know what I mean? Like, you know. When you think about it, what does it cost you to get into this? It costs you nothing to get into this compared with what it costs you to get into anything else. So why wouldn't you at least give it a go? It's fun. You know what I mean? You're going to learn some stuff, you're going to enjoy it, and you're using your money anyway. And what you say to yourself is, what the heck? What's the worst that can happen? That's what I thought. Get into it, get into the pipeline, and if you are skeptical, it's wonderful, because all you have to do is say, listen, buddy, you prove to me that this works. Because no one's going to sit with you these days and argue with you. Trust me, if you argue with them, hey, next, I don't want to argue with you. Just get in the pipeline and let me prove it to you, and then you can stop all your arguing. All right? It's as simple as that. Just say to them, hey, prove it to me. You prove to me this is worthwhile me doing by getting it happening, and they will. It's as simple as that. Then you can do it, and you can get free. Okay, so next steps. Get over it. There's a hell of a lot in that, right? What do you need to get over? You need to get over the old image of what this is all about, because it is not what people think. Do you understand what I mean? I can guarantee you, because I know, because when I'm out there and they do not want to have a bar of it, and they turn around from going, I got it, I see the difference, I see why this is different, I see why this will work, this makes sense, right? And if you get them along to stuff, they're going to thank you forever for it. Some of them are going to be tough customers, but hey, have some guts. You know what I mean? Like you know, in life, that's how you get ahead, by having some guts and just not worrying about what other people think. Do you understand what I mean? For their sake, because what options do they have? Am I being over dramatic? Do you think that people have any options? Do you? Do you really? I mean, you're looking at a guy who developed one of Australia's biggest software companies, a wife who's got to the top of stuff. Do you know, and you can talk to other people who've done the same things. I am not being over dramatic. There are no other options for people. There really aren't. You point to me one person, you might have pointed to me. I know Guy Wilson. He's a person I can point you to who proves you wrong because he's been successful. You point to those guys. I mean, I've got a guy involved who earned $600,000 last year, right? And he's in building this thing like crazy. Why? because he hates his life. And he's got a Mercedes, he goes on overseas trips, expenses expand to fill the income available. Do you understand what I mean? Right, that isn't the answer, guys, right? So for the sake of the people that you know, you need to get over this and get them in. Even if it's just to get them into the pipeline so that you can build underneath them, so that you're building an asset underneath them, so that one day, when they do wake up, they've got a very big asset underneath them. And in the meantime, what's the worst that's going to happen to them? They're going to save some money on it. So you just kind of get over it. And what it means is, getting over it means is you've got to learn to do the invitation, how you contact people the right way. Don't do it your way. Don't do what we all want to do when we get in. Just trust me. This guy I was just telling you about didn't want to do it the right way, so I couldn't convince him, and when it didn't work for him, he then started to listen, and ever since then it's been working for him. Do you know what I mean? You need to get in front of people properly and use the right approach to do that for their sake, not for your sake, for their sake. Otherwise they miss out. Do you understand what I mean? So get over it. That's the first thing. And the way to get over it is just get together with whoever brought you along, and they'll teach you how to do it. Make a list. And for every person on your list, ask the question, where will they be in 5 years' time? Every person on your list, ask that question, where will they be in 5 years' time? Now, pick the people that you know are deliriously happy with their job. They've just started a new business. And those people have just started a new business. They don't need this because their business is going to take them where they need to go right now. And ask the question, where will they be in 5 years' time? Do you know anybody who 5 years ago started a business with great gusto and enthusiasm and it didn't quite work the way that they thought it would? Do you know anybody like that? Right? You can pretty much guarantee where the majority of people are going to be in 5 years' time. So if you get those guys and say, I don't think the timing is right for you right now, but I think you should plug into this thing because you're giving them, they have to do nothing other than plug in, and you're doing them the hugest favour you possibly could by building this thing underneath them. Does that make sense? It's only a couple of $100. Why wouldn't they at least plug in? That wasn't how it used to work. The pipeline would never extend unless they contacted their friends previously. Now they don't need to contact their friends or do anything other than buy the stuff. They don't even have to buy the stuff, but it'd be nice if they did. All right? And the thing will move beyond them. Does that make sense to you guys? Why wouldn't you? Why not? You know what I mean? Like, create an option. People spend more money a year on lottery tickets. Why wouldn't they get themselves into the lottery at least? You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. Okay, make a list. People need you to set the appointment well for their sake. That's really important. Be core, and I'll talk to you about what core is in a minute. If you want to get going with this, if you decided, look, I want to be in Shanghai. Who'd like to be in Shanghai? Yes, and you enjoying those trips. And you know what comes with Shanghai? It's when you're there, you're making passive income. Isn't that nice? So that's nice. Okay, so we're going to talk about what you need to do as the steps if you've made the decision in a minute. Set some goals. Okay, so let's talk about core. All right, CEP, listen to the CDs. I'm telling you, please, for your own sake, whether you're going to build this thing or not, just try the CEP for 3 months. You know what I mean? Like, really, just grab the person and say, look, I'm prepared to do that. I don't know whether, it's going to make a difference in my life or not, but I'll listen to damn things for 3 months and see, all right? I reckon I haven't had anybody yet who hasn't said, I've had plenty of people resist everything in this. We all have. All the leaders here have dragged people kicking and screaming. I'm one. All right? I mean, I think every new person thinks that they've got a monopoly on skepticism. I had a monopoly on skepticism to begin with. I'll never forget going to this, that weekend that Sushil talked about, this conference, right? She deserves the money, okay? Even though she hasn't done anything, she deserves the money because I was a tough nut, right? She came to our house 4 times to try and convince me to come to this seminar, and I told her 4 times no, okay? And on the last time, she came to our house at 9 o'clock on Thursday night before this weekend conference, right? And there was a coffee table, and she just walked in and said, make me a cup of coffee. And she just took off her shoes like this, and she put her feet up on the coffee table, and she said, I'm not leaving till you sign that form. And I thought, this woman really wants us to go. You know what I mean? I was in the pipeline. I wasn't going to do anything about it. You know what I mean? And I went to that seminar, and thank goodness, because that's what changed my life. Do you know what I mean? So I was you think you're skeptical. trust me, I'm a lot more skeptical than you were. You know what I mean? You think about it. You've got a guy who's been so ingrained into the traditional system that he goes off and builds his own company. He's got huge commitments and responsibilities, and you're expecting him to get defocused on some little thing over here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was a tough call, right? But thank goodness that she persisted. Otherwise, I'd hate to think where I would be right now. I'd probably be dramatically successful, having heart attacks, no wife, no kids, no health, and probably good money. Does anybody like that formula? No, I don't think so. You know what I mean? So I'm just so pleased. So listen to the CEPs, use the products, okay? Just get over that. Use the products because they are fantastic products, particularly the core products. And then you'll be convinced yourself. My next door neighbour, oh my God, I deserve it. She, it comes back to you. I go across to see this woman. She doesn't want to know about the pipeline. She doesn't want about the business. She doesn't want to know about financial freedom, but it's what she needs most, you know what I mean? And she and her husband, right? And she wanted to focus on the products, but are they less expensive than the competition and this and that? And all of my skill after all of these years, I'm trying to teach people what to do with these sort of people. I'm thinking, what can I do with this woman, And, so in the end I thought, okay. So she was happy. She said, I'll get in the pipeline if you can convince me about the product. So I thought, all right. So I convinced her. So I went through it with her. She got her first lot of products and started using them. She comes over, these things are fantastic. It's great, tremendous value. And the next month she ordered like twice the amount. You know what I mean? And so I kept the pipelines extending below her, and she just wants to be a shopper. I just want to be a shopper. I just want to be a shop. And then I get an email. Here's somebody that I think you should talk to. Right? So she's gone from being just I just want to be a shopper to a clandestine network builder. Clandestine network builder. Okay, so share the opportunity. So this is the steps of core. Be on the CEP program. Use how tough is all of this, right? Listening to some stuff that's going to change your life. Using the products. Share the opportunity with others. Go pace setter. You saw all these pace setters up here? That's as simple. Just sponsor introduce 2 people into the pipeline every month. Simple as that. And understand the value going full time. So what I mean by that is share the opportunity and go out there and do it. Sharing the opportunity, there's some great little tools. You set an appointment, you go sit in front of people, and if you do it the right way, they're going to get in, okay? Now, this is the work in the thing. Basically, we say do 8 of those a month, okay? It's really not hard to do 8. I believe 15 is where, 8's going to maintain it, but 15 is going to make it go through the roof, so you may as well do it. Now, I want to do a comparison here. If it took you, and I'm just going to pull a figure out of the air, so I don't want to scare anybody off. If you put 15 hours a week into this, right, would that be a lot or not? Who thinks it would be a lot? Okay, let's look at it from 2 points of view. Let's look at it from the point of view of a business or a job. Can anybody name me a business that you put in 15 hours a week into? Or a job you put 15 hours a week into? And in 3 years' time, you're earning in excess of $100,000 a year of passive income? Does anybody know anything that... It's not a bad deal, is it? Would you say that... the amount of time you put in isn't a bad deal. That's one perspective. What about the other perspective? The other perspective is if I have to put in 15 hours a week on top of 60 hours a week I'm already putting into a job. Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? Is it a lot? This is not this business's fault, though, is it? It's like this guy that I showed the business to this week, right, or a couple of weeks ago, I should say. He's a very successful businessman. He's got 4 kids, right? And after I went through, starting to go through it, he proceeds to tell me he's halfway through a master's degree, an MBA, all right? And, I said to him, is that contributing to your buckets or your pipeline? And then he said, well, buckets, I suppose. And I said, and what's it costing you? In time and cost, time away from your kids and the time you're actually putting into it. Do you know what I mean? And he just wanted the letters after his name. That's what he actually said. So what we're actually doing here, he's putting in how many hours a week, do you reckon, into his master's degree? Would it be 15 on top of his job? To spend money and come out with a piece of paper that adds nothing. He admitted it's not going to help him in any way except his self-esteem because he's now got a piece of paper. All right? Am I being too harsh here? I mean, is it true? I think in financial terms it's true. It's not no value, but you've got to know what you're doing it for. As long as you know you're doing it for what you're doing it for, not for the money, because it isn't going to be the money it's going to help you with. Isn't that true? And I know there are a lot of students here, and I'm not putting it down, and my daughter's going to be studying, but as long as you know why you're doing it. So you do this, whatever hours a week, and you come out with a degree in financial independence. Who would like a degree in financial independence rather than a master's degree? All right? Let's get it into the right perspective. Okay, so you share the opportunity. That's the work in the thing. Be a team player. We have a system called VIPS, which is fantastic. That's a voicemail system for counselling and all that sort of stuff. You need a lot of help in this, right? So you are going to get a lot of help, which is fantastic. Attend all functions. So, you think about this. I just want to ask you a question. If you had tonight an extra 10 or 20 people with you, do you think that might have saved you some time? Instead of you having to do the work, let the system do the work, let the functions do the work. Does that make sense? So you get people along to these things, you get them onto the CEP, and that's working smart, not hard. So they're not just for you, for your education, they're actually to help you to build a business because that does the work with people. Does that make sense? Okay, simple as that. Read 15 minutes a day. Absolutely will change your life. Apart from listening to the CDs, read books like Personality Plus and so forth. They're absolutely fantastic, right? So, I don't know, is it worth it to get the results to do this? I reckon it's worth it. Okay, set some goals, okay? Here are the sort of goals. Leaders Club. Leaders Club means that you have sponsored 5 people personally into the pipeline. You've got the team goal, and you and the team put together 5 people on CEP, and you generate 1,000 points of volume. So this is the bit that you have to focus on most, is how can I help the team to introduce 5 of my personal people, right? And you get 5 people on the continuing education program and save their lives, and you generate 100 points of volume, okay? The next step after Leaders Club is Executive Leaders Club. You saw a couple up here who just moved up to a higher level of Executive Leaders Club today. And that means you put 10 personal people into the pipeline, you've got 20 people on the CEP program, 50 people in the group, and you're generating 3,250 points of volume. Silver is where you're generating 7,500 points of volume, and you do that for 6 months, and you're basically in Shanghai, okay? So that's very nice. Platinum, you're on the trips. That's what that is, okay? Emerald, you are free. These are the things you want to go for. They're the little things up there. It's very simple, honestly. Diamond, you are rich and getting richer. Is that cool? All right. Okay. So this is it. How fast can this be done? How fast can it be done? Well, you think about this, right? If you got in here, and there's a few people who have done this, and like a month later, this has gone 10 deep below you. So there are 10 people down below you here. Let's say 3 of those 10 have decided they want to build this. It's not you. I mean, what you'll find when you present this to people, like this guy I presented to this week, he said, okay, if 1 in 3 people you presented to get in, okay, I'm going to have to, he was calculating out how many presentations he would have to do, because he thought he would have to do the whole thing down to 50 deep. And when I explained this to him, his eyeballs just about dropped out of his head. He said, well, that'd have to happen incredibly fast. I reckon, on average, it would be pretty hard if you got your head around this thing, it would be pretty hard on average for it not to go 10 deep a month, on average. Might go a bit slower in the beginning, it's going to go faster in the end, because as it gets deeper, it goes faster. Does that make sense? So let's just do some calculations. Has anybody done some calculations on that? Class? How quickly will it get to 50 deep if it goes 10 deep a month? How many months will it take? 5 months. Okay. So would it be ridiculous to say that you could definitely build with a team 2 of these a year? I mean, that would be conservative based on the numbers we've just done. 2 a year. right? What's diamond? Diamond is how many? 6. How many years will it take at a very conservative rate to go diamond under this current new system? 3. Whew. That's exciting, isn't it? That's very exciting, okay? So that can be done very fast, all right? Now, we've come to the end of this. What I'm now going to do, in a second, and not just yet, is I'm just going to go through just some slides here of, I don't know about you guys, but is there anybody here that's into travel? Good. I love travel. Why do we all like travel so much? It's memories and experiences. We don't remember the time we all... Do you know anybody who on their deathbed said, gee, I wish I'd spent more time at the office? Do you know anybody like that? I tell you what I remember. I remember all of the great trips and so forth that we've been on, right? And I just want to tell you, since October last year, the trips that I have been on, the first trip we went on was we went to Bali. I went to Bali with my son and my wife, and we were there to speak for Network 21. Okay, we stayed there for 10 days. We stayed in a really upmarket hotel. All expenses were paid, and we came back with money in our pockets. And when we came back, you know what we did? Tommy, the little one, and Tanya and I, we went down to Broadbeach on the Gold Coast and went to our favourite restaurant for lunch with our 2 other children, because Laura had, on this day before, just come back from Tahiti, right? And Ben, the day before, had just come back from Namibia. So we all sat around this table and we talked about all the great times that we'd had. It was fantastic, right? And then a little bit after that, we went to Hawaii on ALS. You know Shanghai? Well, last year it was Hawaii, and we had an awesome time in Hawaii. These trips, you can't imagine how great they are. They're better than travel, because they put on these amazing experiences for you. Absolutely incredible experiences, right? So we went to Hawaii. And then a couple of months after that, we took the kids on a trip around the world. We went to South Africa to begin with, and we stayed in the palace. Does anybody know Sun City in South Africa, right? Is it not great? It's fantastic. We stayed in the palace. Cost us $9,000 for 4 days in the palace, right? We went on game drives, and we just had, you'll see the photos, we just had the most awesome time. Then we went up to London, and we spent a week in London, and just did some amazing stuff there. Then we went across to Paris, and we spent a week in Paris, spent New Year's in Paris, and a Christmas lunch in the Eiffel Tower. It was fantastic. And then we went down to the south of France for 2 weeks into the Alps, and we went skiing in Val d'Isère for 2 weeks. Anybody into skiing? My income comes from this business, nothing else. Okay. And then we came back, and we just come back from the most amazing, trip. Did you see up there you have these ALS trips, and then you have an emerald trip, and then you have a diamond trip, right? We've just been on an emerald and diamond trip. We came back from Italy. We had the most amazing time in Italy. I was telling the leaders earlier on before this meeting, in the leaders meeting, and I thought I didn't think I'd get time to do it, but I'm just going to tell you briefly about this. We went to Venice to begin with, and it was awesome. You get out at Venice airport, and you look for a taxi. There's no taxis. You can't get to your hotel by taxi. You have to go by the water. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. We had a wonderful time there, and then we went to Florence. And in Florence, this is an example of the sort of little surprises the company does. They took us out in a bus one day. We went up to this. You'll see photos of this. A really beautiful villa in Florence, just outside Florence. And we had, the view was exquisite, the place was wonderful, the food was amazing. At the end of it all, we thought, okay, well, we're going back, so we go back to the bus, jump on the bus, and they said, no, come out this way. So we went out the back, and this is after lunch, and they opened up the doors, and out the back, the yard, and you'll see photos of this, was full of all these classic sports cars, right? And we pulled, we out of the hat which car we were going to get, and I got the Morgan, right, the green Morgan, you'll see that up there. And we drove around Tuscany for the afternoon and had afternoon teas and stuff. I mean, my wife was petrified all the way. She didn't like this thing. I mean, I think what put her off was the guy said, okay, the brakes don't work very well. We didn't sign anything. They didn't want to see our driver's license. This is Italy. I mean, anything goes in Italy. You know what I mean? And we drove around the Tuscany for the afternoon, and I had afternoon teas and little things all the way along, and then we went back and did all sorts of stuff like that. Then we took the fast train down to Rome, and in Rome, one of the things that we did was we went to the Palazzo Colonna. I don't know whether anybody's been there, but it's not open to the public. And this was a special function. It's owned by a very wealthy family. It's like Buckingham Palace, unbelievable, full of the most incredible artworks and so forth. And we had a guide that took us through this, and we were admiring all the artworks. And the guide said, "You ain't seen, oh my God, my mouth was down like this, looking at all this stuff, And she said, "You haven't seen anything yet." And then she took us into this room, and it was like the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. All around you there was mirrors and there was artwork on the ceiling. It was the most magnificent room I've ever seen. And I wandered up to one end of this room, and there was some marble steps there. And in the marble steps, there's a cannonball. I'm looking down, there's a cannonball embedded in these So I said to the guide, "What's the deal with this?" And the guide said, "That was a cannonball misfired by Napoleon's troops. It came through the window, lobbed onto the step, and they just left it there." Can you believe that? I mean, you see this stuff, it's amazing. And then we go downstairs, and dinner. Dinner was the most magnificent meal I've ever had in my entire life. And they had two of the most famous opera singers in Italy to sing for us for dinner. They reckon the dinner this whole experience cost more than $2,000 a head, right? This is what's available to you just for building 3 of these things. You know what I mean? The next one is the Sea Dream. Okay, it's a cruise around the Mediterranean, right? Stopping in at all these wonderful, the Sea Dream. They created a new category for this boat. An independent body had to create a new category because there wasn't a high enough category. And the new category, guess what the new category is for this boat? It's called utterly exclusive. Right? That's the category, and there's only one boat in it, and it's this one. It's got more staff than there are passengers, right? They write to you before you go and say, "What would you like to drink?" So you put your drink. They stock the fridge with your favourite drinks before you go. And we're stopping in Cannes for the film festival. We're more off Cannes for the. This is the next one. The one after that we already know about. You know what that is? That's skiing in Beaver Creek.